The danger of living in slums must be acknowledged to protect vulnerable people from disaster. Disasters are a complex interaction between potentially damaging physical event and the vulnerability of society, its infrastructure, economy, and environment, which are determined by the human behavior. Fury describes the changing of historical perception of disasters in 3 phases. The most recent phase begins to highlight the industrialization, progress technology, manufactured risk, and human arrogance for causing disasters. We must aim to shape the principles that respond to the growing threat of disaster in urban and rural settings around the world. We must reinvest architecture with the capacity to be powerful, disruptive force, a source of discovery and change. Informal housing is often built on areas that challenge formal development on undesirable land. In particular, land with extreme slopes and weak soil integrity is at risk of unpredictable events, and their site's density and frail construction make them more vulnerable to fires. The arrival. According to statistics, 33% of the population of the worldwide are migrating into established cities. Above is Lindela Retention Center, where South Africa detains illegal immigrants. In most informal settlements, the shacks are all interconnected and joined to the neighbors. The shacks are constructed from whatever materials are available and affordable, so the combinations of plywood, timber, plastic, canvas, billboards, and board make them very flammable. Many of the annual shack fires in the informal settlements occur in winter months and are largely due to paraffin heaters falling over in the night. They are left on to keep the freezing shacks warm. When informal settlements are formed, they are laid out randomly according to the families and communities that already live there. There are no formal streets, numbering systems, or a way to locate specific shacks. When a shack fire or medical emergency occurs, often there is a street across to all the homes. Electric wiring from illegal connections is also a hazard. In South Africa, the most common disasters affecting people in an urban context are shack fires. Using DRR principles, one can set up and reduce the risk of disaster. By example, having dwellings 3 meters apart and having supervised paraffin lamps and preventing faulty electrical connections. Early warning procedures include community communication, community congregation, Lumkari detection device, which is able to alert residents on rise of temperature, therefore alerting them about potential fires. Disaster measures are measures that help ensure a timely and effective first line of response. These could include keeping a bucket handy to fill water in, keeping access to dwellings clear, keeping a bucket of sand, and teaching children the dangers of fire. The recovery process encompasses decisions and actions taken after disaster with a view of restoring or improving the pre-disaster living conditions of affected community. These could be done by firstly ensuring that fire is put out, securing resources and water, and seeking temporary shelter. Disaster risk reduction encourages participation from all the aforementioned parties as well as communities affected by the disaster. Disaster risk reduction begins with the children for the next generation that will continue to find solutions to reduce the risk of disasters. In several countries across the world, disaster risk reduction has already been incorporated into the curriculum of children. This is essential as these risk reduction procedures can help save lives in the future. Firefighters are much like soldiers. However, the responsibility lies with helping prevent life lost during man-made or natural fires. To ensure that the officers is able to do their work effectively, it's important that the communities obey the DRR principles, one of them being keeping the roads clear in order for the fire marshals or fire officers to reach the affected house. The time taken to respond to a disaster before and after would be greatly reduced. The way forward is to create a short-term goal and give it the same attention as we do HIV. This is carried out by locating the several informal settlements and teaching the residents how to respond in situations of disaster. Long-term goals. Teaching professionals about DRR principles is like putting the cart before the horse. Risk reduction procedures and management should be incorporated at an early stage into curriculums, as well as partnering with stakeholders to provide training is essential in reducing the risk of disasters in the future. Another key trait that the volunteers must have is their ability to identify the beneficiaries. They require several aids which need to be given to the affected people, an alternative camping ground, before finding new shelters for them, and basic materials to help complement the efforts of the government. In conclusion, it is important to build a resilient community which is rooted in the culture of safety created through awareness campaigns, revising of curriculum, and the training of locals on disaster risk reduction procedures.